Okay, my name is Leanna Garfoot, and this is my final lesson guide for culturally responsive teaching in winter quarter of 2022. I've chosen the book Eyes That Kiss in the Corners by Joanna Ho. So, summary of Eyes That Kiss in the Corners. It's about a young Asian girl who notices that her eyes are different than some of the other children at school. Throughout the book, she learns to love her eyes and what they represent. The text starts out by explaining that she looks different and how her eyes disappear when she smiles. But as the story goes on, she realizes that her eyes are in her grandmother, her mom, and her sister, and she realizes the importance of being proud of who you are and where you are from. This book is a fantastic example of growing in personal identity and love for your home culture, just support of those around you, and just a fantastic window and mirror for all the students in the classroom. Considerations for teachers. Before reading and teaching Eyes That Kiss in the Corner, there are several elements that a teacher will need to consider. They need to successfully teach a concept by understanding their own opinions on the topic first. So the first thing that teachers should do is consider their own biases. Eyes That Kiss in the Corner is based around Chinese culture, and if the teacher, for example, realizes that they have a bias against Asian girls, then they would not be suited to teach the concept. Luckily, a TED Talk by Verna Myers that we have watched this year and is very useful helps to guide you to dismantle your biases in 3 easy steps. They will take work, but they are laid out great for you. I have linked the TED Talk and a bias test below for teacher resource. So both of those are linked below. Continuing considerations for teachers. Relevancy, I believe, is also very important. The teacher needs to consider the relevancy of the issue to the time that they are living in. For example, recently there has been a larger amount of Asian hate crime in America, and this is important to know before teaching the lesson because some students may raise questions about issues in the news. It is important that you establish possible questions and answers to be prepared to correctly discuss the topic. And below are several links for teacher resource about how to have controversial topics conversations in the classroom, specifically on anti-Asian racism and discrimination. So key concepts and vocabulary for the book, I'm just going to go ahead and read them off to you here. Physical appearance, body image, self-love, sapphire, lagoon, crinkle, crescent, serene, baubles, lychee, gaze, whirl, and revolution. So these are the words that I picked out of the text and also concepts that I think are worth going over with your students for them to get the full understanding of the story. So first, this is the first page of vocabulary. Sapphire is a blue gem. A lagoon is a stretch of salt water separated from the sea by a low sandbank or coral reef. A crinkle is a small form that creases in the eye or the surface of something. And a crescent is a thing that has multiple shapes of a single curve. Serene is a calm, peaceful, and untroubled location, like this wonderful picture here. A bauble is a small, showy trinket or decoration. Lychee is a small, rounded fruit with sweet, white, scented flesh, a large central stone, and a thin, rough skin. So that's a picture there. Gaze is a steady, intended look. A whirl is a rapid movement around something, and a revolution in this context is a beautiful sight or idea. So before reading, I would definitely go over lagoon and serene. I think that kind of helps start with the setting, which we need to discuss before reading the book. And then during the reading, I would talk about the rest of the vocabulary. So sapphire, crinkle, crescent, bauble, lychee, whirl, gaze, and revolution. And then after reading, I would talk about our key concepts: physical appearance, body image, and self-love. Physical appearance being how we look on the outside and what people see our features. Body image, how we see ourselves. And then self-love, more in depth of not just what we look like, but giving ourselves credit and just seeing what we are in the inside and loving ourselves for that. So that is the first theme I chose today, self-love. This is what the book is centralized around. It starts by explaining that the main character doesn't love that she looks different than the people around her. And I think that's really relatable to a lot of students these days. But as the story goes on, she learns about how her appearance is part of who she is and that she is special. This is a great resource for social emotional learning at all age groups, even though it is more of a first, second, third grade book, you can read this in a fifth grade classroom and explain like this is very real and talk about it just at a deeper level. But for second grade, we would work on understanding that we should love everybody, whether they are different or similar to us, and that we should love ourselves for who we are and what we look like. My second theme that I chose for Isaac Kiss in the Corners is pride and culture. She is learning to take pride in where she comes from. So throughout the book, we see several examples of the main character growing her love for where she came from. Another example of culture is in the illustrations. I included this picture off to the side here that I thought was a beautiful illustration from the text. But I think it would be important to deconstruct the images, look for examples of Chinese culture with your students, and then you'll see later even do an art project potentially on it. And then my third and final theme I chose to highlight for this book was family support. This book emphasizes having your family for support and belonging. So as she is struggling with her appearance, she's supported by several generations of women, showing that they are all in this together. In a classroom, I would use this book to talk about love and support from whoever you call your family. It's not necessarily your parents. It's not necessarily your siblings. For some people, it could be a foster family. It could be their teacher, their classmates. So whoever your people are, getting support from them, this is just a great opportunity to build classroom community, and then reach out to whoever else as well. So beginning my lesson plan for identity development in learning justice standards, my first standard is from Identity on the Learning Justice Framework, and it is IDK 2.3. I know that all my group identities are part of me, but that I'm always all of me. And then my second one is in the diversity category, DIK 2.6. I like being around people who are like me and different from me, and I can be friendly to everyone. So these are both second grade standards. I think they go great in understanding who you are, understanding who other people are, and embracing everyone for themselves, which is a great theme in this book. So moving on to skill development in English language arts, both of these standards are Common Core state standards for second grade. The first one is describe how characters in a story respond to major events and challenges. And the second one is use information gained from the illustrations and words in a print or digital text to demonstrate understanding of its characters, setting, or plot. So students will obtain these standards by participating in discussion boards and journals throughout the unit. They obviously would not look like the discussion boards we do now. It would be more like some drawings, definitely fewer words, but they will also be meeting these standards by different class activities or projects that we will do around the unit. So character charts, anything that really just emphasizes who she is and how she grows throughout the story. So math, I have not taken enough of the math teaching classes yet. I've only taken one of the 4 and did not cover a lot of teaching math, so I did not do those courses yet. And same with science. I'm enrolled for next quarter. For social studies, I used the Washington State K-12 Learning Standards for Social Studies, and I chose from the geography category. The first standard is 2.1, and it's applying basic mapping elements to read and construct maps of their communities in the world. And the second one is 2.3, use maps, graphs, photographs, and other representations to describe places and the relationships and interactions that shape them. So we'll meet both of these learning targets by learning where China is on the map and doing a geography project. In my brain, this would take a map of like the world, we color in where we are and where China is, and we could even like Google and do research like how long would it take by boat, by plane, and then we could color in our map in our travel and just better understand where we are in comparison to Asia. For art standards, I chose visual arts and dance. My first visual art standard is interpret art by identifying the mood suggested by a work of art and describing relevant subject matter and characteristics of form. And my second one is experiment with various materials and tools to explore personal interests in a work of art or design. And then for dance, I chose find movements in a dance that develop a pattern and demonstrate and describe movements in dance from different genres or cultures. So I'd really focus on the genres and cultures of that part. These will be met by analyzing and creating our own art project as well as watching and learning traditional Chinese dance steps. So I've seen some great videos on YouTube that I did put in my resources on just basic Chinese dance step. And then for visual arts, I was thinking definitely doing some sort of like paper mache project or something based on the Chinese art in the illustrations of the book. For intellectual development, students will learn about the importance of other cultures. They will develop intellectualism through research and various projects. The two standards I've chosen are from the Learning Justice Framework Standards. The first one is in the justice category, and it is, I know my friends have many identities, but they are always still just themselves. And the second one is from diversity category, and it is, I can describe some ways that I am similar to and different from people who share my identities and those who have other identities. So both of these, like I had already mentioned, will be met through doing research and various projects that I've already mentioned through ELA and social studies, as well as art. But it's about learning who you are and who the people around you are as well. Criticality. Teacher and student interaction will allow students to get a deeper understanding of their impact on the world. Through projects, layered resources, and discussion, students will achieve criticality. The Learning Justice Framework Standards I chose are both in action. I care about those who are treated unfairly, and I can and will do something when I see unfairness. This includes telling an adult. So since these are both second grade standards, they are very pared down for what we would see later on in their lives in school, but I think that it's important to set a standard early on about the treatment of people, and that is easily talked about when dealing with a book that discusses what potentially could have been bias or discrimination, but really just embodies identity and individualism. So for discussion questions, I have 10 here that I thought were great examples. There is definitely a whole bunch more you could come up with to use in the classroom, but I'll read them off to you. It is, tell the class about your favorite part of the book. Describe the end of the book. What does she realize? How can we show love to people who are like us and people who are different? What did we notice in the pictures that contributed to the story? What helped her decide that she should love herself? Who else supported her in the book? What does self-love mean? What are some things we do to celebrate our differences in the classroom? What do you know about the main character's culture? And what are things that you wonder about the main character's culture? So these would be used in a class discussion setting where we would be going back and forth. Some of them, well, actually all of them are very open-ended, and I can always kind of contribute a little more of what I want to say to them, like things that they're not bringing up in conversation, so that I'm getting the message across and that I want them to understand. And then we have journal prompts. These are similar, but these will be done most likely in a private notebook that only I would read, and they're more for reflection instead of building discussion with the class. So I'm going to read them off. Have you ever felt like you look different than someone else? What is one thing about yourself that you are proud of? What is something that you and your parents share? Should the main character feel proud that she looked different? Why? What is something you can do to celebrate your culture? How can you celebrate someone else's culture? Why is loving yourself important? Why is loving where you come from important? When was a time that you felt sad that you were different? And how can you share your differences with the world? So these can be really extensive. And for 4th and 5th grade, I would expect them to write quite a bit. But for 2nd grade, it's just supposed to get the ideas kind of flowing and just to hear what they have and what they come up with creatively. So layered resources. I started by going over the Learning Justice lessons. The website is linked in my resources as well as on one of the first slides. The two that I took off of there were looking at race and racial identity in children's books and family colors, interviewing our families. So both of these are still super early elementary grade projects that would kind of just let them dig in more to their identity and where their families are from and how is our family different than their family, while still talking about the importance of race and identity. So it says, both these lessons will help to build on the students' understanding of race and culture and people similar and different. So continuing my layered resources, there is another tab on the Learning Justice website called Professional Development. On that tab, it has several different subcategories: classroom culture, classroom climate, engagement and leadership, and Learning Justice offers workshops, trainings, and other resources to grow personally as the educator in order to better teach the lessons with your students. So if you find yourself a little bit stressed that you don't quite know the content or how to properly address some of these issues with your students, you can go to Learning Justice website, and they have all of these other trainings to help get you up to speed, which is just a great resource for teachers and educators. And then another layered resource, a complimentary text, Eyes That Speak to the Stars, is the sister book to Eyes That Kiss in the Corners. It was just released, I believe, in February. And this book, I would read the next day or two after the first book to kind of continue the lesson if we have time in the classroom to keep talking about this author and the message. This is a great book to just add on and be like, here's another great example. Like, now that we've practiced with the first book, going through and taking things out of the illustrations and the character, let's do it again for like repetition, for practice. So that's a great resource as well. Also just an amazing book. And then my last layered resource about the author. So there is a website for Jonna Ho. It has resources, all of her books, and a bio about her. So you can kind of learn more about where the author's coming from and why she's writing the story and things to mention. And then this is a read aloud of Jonna Ho reading her book with a little more information in the beginning about her. So that's also an amazing thing to share with your students or for just you to watch. I thought that was great. And then those are my resources. And that is my final lesson plan on Eyes That Kiss in the Corner. Thank you.